today. In an hour with Professor Yalman from Radio TED University Anchor Studios. Here we are with a new episode just before the spring break. Yes, the finals are almost over, and we will be enjoying at the university level the spring break. But as we go through this, I wanted to share a special guest with you today, which is Odi the dog, my dog. Yes, it's a stray dog, but it has certain resemblances of different breeds together. And I can see a border collie, a Labrador, or the Anatolian dog actually within Odi, which actually builds the behavior and the attitude towards certain systems and things as Odi responds. So we were talking about Odi the dog and the dog's life and what we can learn from that, this supreme system I call a dog. Yes, our best friend we call it, but actually it's our best mirror. And the mirror actually shows us certain things that if we were to include that in our lives would be more fun and actually healthy, but at the same time easier. The first thing about the dog's life is the discipline. And if you discipline the dog will have a better system in terms of giving back and a healthy manner and a healthy system and longevity in terms of life. But even if you don't give the discipline to the dog has this tendency to discipline itself. For example, the discipline of eating, the discipline of exercise, the discipline of puping, the discipline of showing compassion towards other people. So don't just look at a dog, or whether it's a breed, a special breed, or whether it's a stray dog. A dog has discipline integrated into life. In terms of giving love, the dog does that in an unconditional way. Yes, the dog has a memory and doesn't forget the bad things which happen to the dog if the dog is traumatized, for example. But in general, the dog is programmed for compassion, for giving back, for oxytocin. And that the dog does regardless. That means unconditionally. So the dog wants to please. And if you mirror that to yourself, actually, we're here actually to please and mirror each other to each other. So it's an important aspect of our lives if we give love unconditionally without any expectations towards each other. It's very difficult in our lives as humans, but we should actually integrate that from the dog. That brings me to the other subject, the food, the nutritive system of the dog. Even though you don't give the dog a certain pet food, the dog knows what to eat and how to eat it, and the dog does not intake actually what is toxic. And the nutritive system of the dog embodies itself with actually the health of the dog, the exercise of the dog, and the manners of the dog. And the food, the rewarding, if you disappear, if you dissolve the reward factor of the food, and if you feed the dog properly, and all of a sudden the dog will not be just there for you because you feed the dog. So the dog will be willingly with you for the love you give the dog and the love that you receive from the dog. That is leading to recognition, because the dog recognizes how you behave towards the dog, and how the dog actually behaves towards you is based on your behavior towards the dog. So whatever your behavior is lacking towards the dog recognizes that and gives that back to you. So you learn, so you mirror what is lacking in your own behavior. The bond of the dog between you is, and between other breeds, is because of the fact that is built on the fact that actually certainty, not doubt. So if the dog is in doubt, the behavior of the dog is not expanding and collaborating in a healthy manner. So the bond is weak and in not intact. But if the if the bond is built on certainty, so if the dog knows your actions, if the dog knows your decisiveness towards certain things, then all of a sudden the certainty takes over and the doubt factor diminishes. The dog does not like the doubt environment. The dog does not like the doubt feeling. The dog does not like the doubt behavior. So you need to be certain with the dog. So when you pet the dog, you pet the dog. You don't sort of put your hand and take it back, put your hand and take it back. That's what I say to little kids when they try to pet, for example, Odi. I say to them, be certain, be decisive, so the dog feels the confidence. So the certainty brings confidence to the bond. That leads to recognition towards the senses. Yes, the eyesight and the ear sight of the dog is very different from us, but actually the scent factor is very, very important. The dog understands and recognizes and draws certain parallels from the scent. So the way you smell, the way other animals smell, the way the atmosphere, the environment smells. And that is very much a huge database for the dog to receive and build on the entire actually protection, entire love, entire compassion towards the environment and to different people. So the scent is very, very important in terms of, in a way, looking at the information and analyzing the information and decoding the information for the dog. And that all, this entire list that I just talked about leads us to trust. And trust is the most important factor in the dog's life. And actually, trust is one of the most important factors in our relationship lives between each other, between our work, between our school, between our family. So what do we need to retrieve from this? If we discipline ourselves, if we discipline our relationships, if we discipline our environments, if we give unconditional love with a lot of compassion, if we have correct nutritive systems where we intake non-toxic food and minerals, and at the same time we recognize and empathize on the needs of each other, so build our bond not on doubt but on genuine certainty. Understand that our sensory system gives us a lot of information about each other, so intuitively we could sort of collaborate and compound on that. That will lead us to a certain way of compassionate behavior that would sort of that would be all sort of wrapped up around trust. So this is the mirroring of the dog to us as we sort of observe their behavior and their relationship with their environments. Now, I'm going to bring to the table a different set of observations as well, besides these very important supreme points. Now, as we have listed, there is discipline, giving love, compassion, the food, recognition, the bond based on certainty, rather than doubt, and the scent factor of recognition, and at the same time, the building of trust. Now, all this can be related to actually our daily relationships as well. Now, as humans, when we are more disciplined with our inner and we give unconditional love without expectations, where we have a proper nutritive way of supporting us and the recognition of everything in the sense of sublime and gift, expecting everything as a gift, treating everything that happens to us as a gift, and the bonds that we create between other people and us, basing it on compassion and genuinity, and at the same time recognizing the fact of certain vibrations and for certain frequencies, like the scent, like the sound, like the sight. So all those five senses, and basing everything on, rather than doubting each other but on being certain about each other, will automatically bring the trust that we are seeking for upon and beyond creating actually lasting relationships. Yes, one might say everybody has their own expiration date. Yes, we all expire on each other because we are all in duty to each other. And that brings me to the learnings from Odi the dog, my dog. And the dog actually is here for a duty as well. The duty of giving you the oxytocin that you need for life, so you continue with your dopamine levels and your adrenaline levels. But at the same time, the dog is there for you to mirror you in a way where you are neglecting who you are and how you are. So that brings me to another field of certain things that the dog does, that which we can sort of reflect and observe for our own inner development. For example, the game part. The game part is actually, it looks like fun, but it's a brain exercise along with the physical exercise. So if you put the dog into a game and the dog has fun and development in that game, the dog expands its brain and mental status and bonds the physique along with the standard of life. So you can see a 16-year-old or 14-year-old dog acting like a 6-year-old dog if the gaming is properly within the life of the dog. Same as humans. If we have excitement in our life, if we have a certain expectation towards the surprises in the life that we are living, then that brings our entire system to rejuvenate and renew itself. When I look at the dog again, the place of the dog is very, very important. So the dog, when you, for example, put a towel or a sheet on the floor, and you show the dog that that's its own space, the dog will sort of crawl and put its scent on it and redesign this entire blanket, if you will, and then sleep on it. And that will sort of give the dog a security of space. It's same thing with us. Place is very important. So that's why we sort of underline the importance of our surroundings, the aesthetics, the practicality of our surroundings. And when we long for home, we long for actually that presence that we have situated and created for us, as the dog does. And that's why the dog does not want to sort of go beyond stray of its home. And whenever you're in a different place and you place a blanket, same as like as if you do it at home, at the dog's home, the dog will automatically feel in peace within the new space. The dog also likes the boundaries. When you show the dog that you can do this and you should not do that. So don't jump on the bed because that's my space, or don't jump on the couch, that's my space. If you put these boundaries, that's very healthy. Same with humans. If you put boundaries to your children, if you put boundaries to your friendship, you protect all of a sudden your own boundaries where you have your spacious life. Same thing with the dog, and the dog respects that. And the dog, actually, beyond respecting that, feels comfortable with that and feels secure with that. Another important aspect of the dog is the respect the dog has for you, and that is you keeping your word with your actions. So feeding the dog at the same right time, feeding the dog at the same time, or grooming the dog, or taking the dog for a walk at the same time. So it's the discipline of actually staying behind your actions, which you repeat. Same thing with humans. The respect is gained only not just through whether you're compassionate or genuine, but if you are actually in act of your word. So if you walk your talk, same thing. And the communication factor is very, very important. A lot of people say that you should speak to the dog, but it's not just speech, it's also the vibration you give to the dog, your stand that you sort of portray with the dog, your stance and your body movements, and at the same time your feelings, how the feelings are accumulated within your body actually. So that also brings the dog to a system where the dog feels more and more comfortable. And same thing actually with us humans. If we communicate with actually the aura that we have, and if we stand behind that aura that we have, that will dimensionally give us a different attitude and respect towards the other, and that will sort of have us be perceived the way we want to be perceived in terms of our values and the person who we want to be and who we are. In and out with Professor Yalman at Radio TED University Studios. We are continuing our conversation with Odi's supreme system of life. And this brings me to actually the fact of thought. The thought and the energy transfer, which is actually building the dog's frequency towards other beings, and the way the dog is, in a way, in act with its similar breeds, and how the dog is in a different act with the breeds that the dog is not familiar. For example, Odi is very much in comfort with stray dogs because Odi is a stray dog. But when we look at the breeds, the special breeds, the communication between the breeds on Odi is firstly starting with a certain suspicious act. So this brings me to us. For example, when we recognize a person whom is actually doing the same things like us, or looking the way we do, or from the same culture, etc., we're more comfortable. But when we go diverse, then that diversity brings actually a certain doubt where we start measuring and judging things. Same thing with the dog, and the dog goes through this much faster, but the initial reaction would be to protect itself. Our initial reaction doesn't seem to be protecting ourselves, but at the bottom layer of everything, it is, because the fear factor, the suspicion scenario triggers the fear factor, and the fear factor, we tend to sort of, with our judgmental mind, we want to overcome that fear factor. The memory part is also very interesting because the dog does not forget, and the dog does not forget who and how that person wants to be treated. Sometimes we do that as people. We want to be so much at the center of things where we want everything to be our way. And that is, unfortunately, a very malfunction, I would say, of humans. So the dog doesn't do that. The dog memorizes how, empathetically actually, how everybody wants to be treated, and the dog acts accordingly in the way the dog would do in a herd. For example, a German Shepherd or a Border Collie would do that. But other dogs have the same genes where they tend to bring this quality out, and in humans we have to understand that the memory part should be built on an empathetic level of how others want to be treated, how others like to be loved, how others like to be gifted. So if everyone, every person, each one of us, if we are mirroring ourselves, a certain quality of ourselves, actually that can be helpful in terms of building that empathy. So if you build the empathy, you're building the sympathy for yourself. So this is very, very important. If you're building empathy for somebody, you're building sympathy actually for yourself, because that person is a mirroring of you. This supreme system of this being, the dog, actually is there for us to observe and learn. So I recommend everybody to actually own or take care or be in companionship with a dog. Of course, cats, horses, these are also wonderful animals to learn from, and I will also cover especially the horses in a different program. But I want to sort of draw these similarities where we where we can pick on observing a dog and guiding it towards the way we live our life in a very helpful way. So we sort of observe us from the mirroring of our best friend, the dog, who is there unconditionally for you to love and to respect and to give for you, in return deserves genuine action and compassion from you to actually build this bond to a greater level. This concludes my episode today with the dog's life of Odi the Dog, the supreme system. So in the next program, hoping to have new guests, and I hope you're going through a nice break, because now the university, we have the exams, the final exams over, and the gradings are happening, and students are taking a breath in terms of the interim of the spring break. So have a good one, have a wonderful break, and when we return, we'll have new episodes. In and Out with Professor Yalman from Radio TED-U, Ankara, TED University Studios. Keep on listening, and don't forget, yes, do dream, do objectivize things, but don't make them, or don't have them be your expectations, and don't make them expectations.